Morning, Wilson. How are you today?
Morning, Peter. I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
I am absolutely fantastic. Thanks very much. And welcome to the Business Spotlight. Thanks very much for sharing your time this morning, Wilson. If we could start by, could you tell me a little about you and your business, please?
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Wilson. I run a production company called MotivePeak. We make commercial-based films for businesses. So that looks between doing social media work, doing TVCs for clients, do a whole range of stuff. And we've recently started doing a bit more photography as well.
And how long have you been in business for?
So I've been doing this, sort of started properly under a brand name since 2015. And yeah, just kind of been going since then. So sort of rebranded as Motive Peak in about 2017. So it's been about sort of 5 or 6 years since then. But sort of operate under a different business name since about 2015. So yeah, about 8 years in total, sort of been doing it.
Well, so that's a terrific achievement. Congratulations. So tell me, what was the spark, Wilson, that led you to launch the business?
Um, it's a funny one. I think for a lot of people in my role in terms of uh, uh, like a creative, a lot of times it comes from that they just always wanted to do it. For me, it was more so I just when I was younger, I just loved making stuff. And that was a mix of different things. Wasn't so great at art, but I really enjoyed doing art at school. I just loved making stuff on Photoshop and doing different things. Actually did my undergraduate at Ulster University. I studied interactive media. Because although I love to make films at that stage, my parents bought me like a wee Sony Handycam, and I used to make like these sort of short family montages of like Christmas Day and sort of family get-togethers and stuff. I didn't know it was video I wanted to do specifically. So I just kind of done my degree, but I think by the end of it, I kind of knew filmmaking is where I wanted to kind of go. And yeah, it just for me, my roles kind of changed over the years in the company. But for me, my spark and my drive has always been I just love creating stuff, especially for clients. I love just working alongside them, getting to know their business, and just developing story for them in the best way possible. So for me, the spark has always been that I suppose just making stuff in general.
When you mentioned clients, so describe the type of person or business that would benefit most from your service.
We work with a wide range of clients. Some of our clients would be like Loud Guitars. We've worked with Line, and so we have worked with kind of some sort of quite big names within Northern Ireland, but also just some not necessarily smaller, but just general small business owners. And For us, our kind of market is any kind of business, because any business can really benefit from video marketing in some ways. I think we don't tend to call what we do video marketing, even though it is, because I think sometimes marketing has a bit of a negative connotation on it because it feels like you're trying to sell something. But for us, what we want to try and do is, I suppose, tell a business's story. So I think that's applicable to any business, whether it's a small business owner or an SME or larger corporations. Ultimately, there's stories to be told within companies and businesses, and that's where we kind of fit in is working alongside businesses and telling them. So for us, it's anyone with a business really we would market ourselves to because we feel like that's where we can kind of make the most impact.
And what would you say has been the most significant lesson that you've learned as a business owner so far, Wilson?
Um, for me, it's about client relationships. Is the thing I learned the most. If I look through my client list of who I work with, majority of them I've worked with them for quite a while, and they're returning customers for me. And I would say a lot of my relationships with my clients now Of course, there's that kind of professional relationship where we talk about business, but there's a few I can sort of think of in the top of my head where as soon as the phone call comes in, we talk about a new project. The first conversation is more like, how are you? How's the family? And getting to sort of chat with each other and get to know each other a bit more. So for me, that's something I've really learned is the value of having a good relationship with your client, both sort of personally and professionally. And I think what helps with that is, our clients that we work with continually, at the start, a lot of them sometimes are like, oh, we have done this before, and they kind of get a bit anxious because they haven't done the process before. But once they start working with us and they kind of see what way we work, it creates needs for them. And so a lot of our bigger clients who we work with quite a bit will come and say, look, this is what we want to do. Just you tell us what way you kind of want us to do it. And then we work with the pre-production side of it. So I think having a really strong relationship just helps in all ways because it eases the client, but it also lets you do better work because the client trusts you.
And is there anyone that you would consider to be like a successful business leader or mentor in your industry that you if not aspire to, that certainly that's someone that you look up to? And
yeah, it's a tough question. There's definitely people within Northern Ireland that I definitely look up to in a business sense. I think Northern Ireland's so small that I have a lot of friends who own small businesses like myself, and I get a lot of inspiration from them a lot of times. But I suppose I'd be a big podcast listener when I'm driving and stuff, and so I listen to a lot. And so I have a few podcasts and people who talk on podcasts here just I love listening to, and sort of would be quite influenced by them. One would be Dan Lenny. So he's a Scottish guy, but I think he's living in Australia or something. He'd mentioned before in the podcast. He runs a podcast called How to Scale Your Video Business. And it's really, really invaluable because if you go onto YouTube and you look up sort of video stuff, a lot of times it's either camera reviews or people talking about the artistic side of filmmaking. Dan Lenny does this really good thing where he just solely talks about how to run a video business. And he even talks about things like, how should you charge, and when should you sign contracts, and I suppose like when should you hire an editor, how should you grow your team, and all those things. I suppose when you are in this line of work where you're in a creative role, you can get sucked up into that and sort of want to just make stuff all the time, and you sort of forget the other side, which is like, well, there's a business going on over here. So I find Dan's stuff to be really quite great and influential for me. And then another guy I listen to, I follow quite a bit on Instagram as well, is someone called Ian Murray. He's a DOP and a cinematographer, and he would do sort of stuff for like McDonald's. So he lights scenes, and he does this amazing thing on his Instagram. He's worth a follow if you do this, because he does a thing called set notes, where he shows like his reference frame. So when he goes into a scene, he just takes a photo of it as in the recce, and then he lights it. And then he shows his set notes of how he lit it. So he like shows where he put lights and stuff, which is just really invaluable. And it's just, really inspiring for me to watch how he works. And then he has a podcast called Light Club, which is kind of like a play on Fight Club. And he brings in like other DOPs and they talk about how they lit scenes. And for me, I just love going back to kind of making stuff. I love making stuff. And for me, that's kind of fallen into, I love seeing how lighting works, especially because it's such a huge part of filmmaking for me. So yeah, those guys really sort of quite inspire me.
Excellent, great examples. And what's currently motivating you and driving your passion for your business at the minute, Wilson?
It's a good question. For me, what really drives me at this stage of life is I just like making good work. I think there's that sort of phrase, it's quite cliche, but you're only as good as your last piece of work. It's a bit of a mantra for me. I do believe that you are only as good as your last piece of work. I think you need to kind of keep on developing your craft, especially in a creative role, and just making better work. And so for me, I'm really content where I'm at with my client list and who I'm working with, and the work I get to do with them and the creative control they give me. So for me, it's just all about making good work for them, because they do trust me as well. I want to make sure that I'm hitting that mark for them every time, or if not, surpassing it.
And if you could go back in time, what advice would you give to yourself at the age of 18 regarding either entrepreneurship or business or anything?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I did do the I don't know if it's Invest in I, but I did sort of one of those courses when I started my business at sort of 22 or 23. But I suppose just accessing those resources. There's a lot of resources now, especially within Northern Ireland, to starting small businesses. And I think just I sort of surrounded myself with a lot of creative people, but I think it would have been good to surround myself with business people as well. I think when you're young and a creative, you sort of think, you know, what you're kind of taught is as long as you are creative enough, the money will follow, and that is totally true. I totally believe that. But I think as well, when you're trying to run a business, you need business-minded people around you to help guide you. Because I think like at school, you're not really taught things like taxes and self-employment, and when you submit certain things. And I remember having my first conversation with my tax accountant on like what I could claim, what I couldn't. And yeah, I think you're sort of you're told a lot of stuff when you're younger. Like when it comes to tax, you're like, oh, you can claim this and this, and then when I first had that conversation with my tax accountant, they're like, no, you can't, you can't claim all that stuff. So yeah, I think just getting connected with like-minded business people who not necessarily in your field, or just really good business people will be good. As well, get an accountant. I think having an accountant is invaluable thing. I'm not a mathematical person at all, so my accountant is my lifesaver every year. And I would recommend anyone that doesn't come naturally to them. Just they're worth the price you pay for them. And then lastly, then I would just say to my 18-year-old self, it's like don't rush yourself. I feel like when you come out of university or school or wherever and you want to be a business owner, you feel like you need to prove yourself. And although that's true, I think now being older, I think I look back and I think, I didn't have to push myself so much. It's for me at this stage of life, it's more about not how fast I can run, but how long I can run for now. And so consistency, you've probably seen them on like Instagram. There's like those posts where it's like consistency is not like doing the same every day. It's like, some days it's like this and some days it's like this, and I think that's really crucial is, I think if you just keep pushing yourself all the day, you're going to burn out. And when you burn out, it's harder to recover from that. So I think that would be one of the key pieces of advice I give my younger self is like, don't feel like you need to burn yourself out. Like if there's some days you just don't feel like you're at it. But at the same time, like meet your clients' expectations, all that kind of stuff. But there's a whole sort of circle around there as well, I think.
Good stuff. And pun intended, but let's fast forward to 2028. So 5 years' time. Tell me, what does MotivePeak look like then, Wilson?
I think in an ideal world, for me, it's just me in the business, and I work with a lot of freelancers. I would love at some stage to grow in a space where I have someone else in with me, working with me, because it really helps, I think, bouncing ideas off, especially in a creative sense. But the other side, I suppose, given the advice that I just given there, I'm also really content where I'm at. I have really great relationships with my clients. I think as well, it's really nice is a lot of people who come to me come really organically. It's, a business has recommended me to another business. And, that word of mouth is just so crucial because there's trust there already built, because they're like, oh, we know you did good work for them, so we know you'll do good work for us. And so the pace that I'm growing at and the work I'm doing for clients, I'd say I'm very content if I just keep growing the way I am now. In 5 years' time, not that I'll be much bigger, but I'll be in maybe a bigger space to allow to take on more clients and work with different brands. So, but at the same time, if I'm doing what I'm doing now in 5 years' time, I think I'll be really content, because I'm really happy. I think I've had a really good stride now. The first couple of years in the business is very much about just building the foundations of what kind of business you want to be in terms of your ethos and sort of what kind of quality work you want to build and all that kind of stuff. And now I'm kind of in that later stage where I just get to go and enjoy what I do a lot of times. I'm still looking at those foundations and what to build, of course, and that's always part of it, is the business side of it, of growing. But if in 5 years' time I'm still doing this with the same clients, I'd be totally happy.
Wilson, that sounds fantastic. And if somebody likes what they've heard and would like to reach out to you, what would be the best way to go about that?
So if you want to see our body of work, the best place is our website, which is MotivePeak.com. You can also see some of our work on Instagram, which is just Instagram.com/MotivePeak. We have Facebook as well. We have all the kind of channels. For our most up-to-date work, it's probably our Vimeo page. So that's, again, just Vimeo.com/MotivePeak. But if you go from our website, basically that kind of branches into everything where you can kind of see most stuff.
Superb. Well, Wilson, Lynn from MotivePeak, thank you very much for your time this morning. It's been really cool hearing about your journey and your business and your plans for the future. So thank you very much. I wish you all the success for the remainder of 2023 and beyond. Thank you very much indeed.
Great. Thanks for us, Peter.